Hey everyone, welcome back. Previously we talked about building this little full stack app. We talked about building front-end image, back-end image, a Copilot Docker image. So we have three Docker images flying around. They talk to each other in a certain way via engines. And uh, Previously we also talked about how to use Claude Code to put the database on S3 by creating a DynamoDB table. So all that's done, right? All that's done. Um, Up to now, the Docker images are still local, right? I have to build a Docker image. I have to fire up the Docker image on localhost, and then I can use my browser to type in localhost 3000 or whatever port range I'm using to go into the web app to see what's going on, right? Okay, let's say for the time being, I'm happy with the look and feel of this web app and I want to give this web app to another person. The other person can take the code, build a Docker image, deploy it on localhost, and then they will be able to see this. Perfectly fine if that's how you want to do it. But in reality, that's probably too much work. If you just want to give this to another person, the best way is to deploy this somewhere, right? You want to deploy this somewhere, probably some sort of cloud. So that's what we're talking about today in this video. There are multiple ways to do it. I'm gonna start with the easier one. I'm gonna use the Azure Web App. So I picked Azure on purpose because previously we use AWS, and then some people are asking me, well, how do you do it with other cloud platforms? Well, it's kind of the same thing, right? AWS has CLI, Azure has CLI, Cloud Code no CLI. So you see where I'm going with this, right? So we're gonna have Claude Code do that, but before we have Claude Code do that, we need to have a plan, right? And since I'm just making YouTube videos here, obviously, like I'm not trying to deploy something that 100,000 people are using. So I'm gonna go with the cheapest tier that's possibly available. So here's what I'm gonna do. I know I have a Docker image. This chart is here. I know it's here because I've been looking at it. Um, Now I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say the following. Now I want to deploy this to Azure. Here's what I know. And then I'm going to put together a list. We have three Docker images. Let me list it out, right? Front end, back end, and Copilot. Actually, let me check the Docker desktop just to make sure I'm not spelling this wrong. Um, I definitely can do a better job. Just say front end. I think I use the name stock front end, and I think I used a stock back end, and then I think I also used stock dash copilot. Okay, so I want to deploy this to Azure. I need a Docker image to be somewhere, and then I need a web app to pull the image, right? So the web app can then load the image. Web app will hit when traffic comes in, it will hit the front end. And then if user do something on the front end, it will hit the back end and then get the data back, display it back on the front end. So that's the logic. So I'm gonna I don't think I need to spell all that out because it's not like today's day one that Cloud Code figure out Cloud Engineer, right? Cloud Code knows all that. But I do need to be a little bit clear of the service that I'm using. So I'm gonna say this. I'm thinking about using Azure Container Registry to create a new repo. Call it cookie cutter test um, something like that. The ACR repo, so this cookie cutter test repo needs to have three Docker images. Then we need a Azure web app. And since there are three Docker images, we need a web app that supports multiple instances or images. I actually think I might be abusing the terminology here. I think instances can probably mean a lot of different things on a cloud environment, but I'm just gonna leave that error there, see if Claude somehow pick it up or recorrects itself sometime down the road. I don't know. Again, I'm recording this complete live, so I don't know. But based on my experience, certainly that's abusing the knowledge, right? That's abusing terminology. There are a million other things could be called instances. Um, but I hopefully I narrate this strategy well enough that I'm asking for one Azure web app that supports three Docker images. So I'm hoping I narrate that well. So we might need some sort of a YAML file to deploy this. Um, so um, I want you to put together a plan to do this. Um, be aware you'll need Azure CLI and you'll need to create the services first. Use a new resource group. So you'll need to create one and name all services you created with cookie cutter test prefix or something similar. And obviously including resource group, um, ACR, and then Azure Web App, uh, and whatever others that's related. I don't expect any other service to be created. I'm just expecting a resource group. Under that resource group, there's ACR and there's an Azure Web App. It should just be as simple as that. Um, so let's see how this works, and let's see if we can pull this off with one list of bullet points of command that's clear enough. Um, okay. And then as a fail proof, ask me clarifying questions. Then let's put together a plan first. Okay, so that's what I know. Again, I might be typing things wrong. I might be missing things. It could just be a terrible strategy, right? All those things could be true. Um, but again, we're testing the boundaries here of Claude Code, right? So uh, I think it's interesting to run this experiment. And hey, if end of the day we have an web app that's live, that's cheap, then maybe that's serve a purpose, right? So let's see. A few questions before the plan. So la 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 la, and then here's the plan. Okay. Obviously, we need to, answer the questions, right? So one by one. So I'm gonna say this. Um, Let me answer your questions below. Okay. Number one. What is number one? Create a resource group. Sorry, that's not a question. Azure CLI, are you already authenticated? AZ is AZ login. So I'm gonna say this. I've done it before, but you can try to run AZ logging as well. So that's my answer. Region, any preference? Uh, it's interesting. I think I'm gonna stick with probably East US is probably fine, or West US too is probably fine. So let's just stick with East US if available. Use East US if available. Um, I'm going to assume it's available unless told otherwise. In industry, obviously, this depends on a bunch of different things, depending on where your team is, where you're going to ship this, where the customer base is, and a million other questions like that. Pricing. I don't want to pay that. I want to go as cheap as I can. Um, so the free share tiers don't support it. Uh, okay, so I'm gonna use a B1 and I'm gonna shut it down, right? Um, B1 is $13 a month. Um, I'm gonna do it just for the sake of doing it, and then after this, I'm gonna shut it down so I don't have to pay $13 per month. But I think if you have a single container, this is gonna be free. So for question three, uh, yes, B1 tier is fine. Um, please document in the plan how to delete it later. Delete it gracefully later. Okay, and then we'll come back to that because obviously I don't want to pay additional money if I don't have to. Environment variables. That's the important thing. So yes, after you create it as your web app, you'll need to use Azure CLI to add the API keys that are in the .in file as environment variable on Azure web app. Do this using Azure CLI. So I don't have to do it, right? Because it's kind of hassle to copy paste a secret from one place to another place and then repeat that 3 times. That's a lot of hassle to do that. If you do that many times, you're probably gonna make a mistake. So let's do it here gracefully. What is the next question? Custom domain. Do you need a custom domain? Or is blah 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 fine for now? I don't need a custom domain. Again, this is just a YouTube video. Let's keep everything simple. No, I do not need custom domain. Uh, let's just use the default one. Okay, next question. Number 6. The Copilot service, it needs this. The backend needs this. Uh, should I just mirror the current? Yes, use Azure CLI to mirror the .in file secrets. Okay. Um, hopefully the above answer can help you update the plan. I want you to update the plan for me. Please also save the plan. Obviously, you want to save it because we want to come back to it. I am going to pick an actual location, typically deployment or docs. In this case, I want this to be a reusable strategy, right? So I'm going to put it in docs. Okay, so I am gonna copy this path and then I am going to put it here. Please also save the plan here. So let's call it docs create slash, I'm gonna call it deployment Azure markdown file. Um, So please make sure you create this .md file for me first before you continue with the implementation. Great. This way, we have a track record of what exactly it is that Claude Code is about to do here. So in the middle of all of this, if I happen to be walking away, or if computer shuts down, or whatever happens, well, not to worry. Hopefully, that's what that markdown file is doing for us, right? And that should be the first thing, or that should be the absolute first thing that you create. Um, I will probably, and this is just, in production as a good habit, I will go so far to have Claude Code to create the markdown file first, and then have people stamp on it. Have you stamp on it, have another engineer stamp on it, or your boss stamping on it. Have someone stamp on it. Really make sure that we got a good grip on what's going on before implementation. So, for example, here, uh, it wrote this. It says the plan saved here. Great. Let's refresh. We do have a new file here. Let's click on that. And then this is the plan, right? So we say we're gonna do this, this, this. We're gonna create all these services. And then we authenticate, we create a resource group, we create the ACR as your container registry. This is the CLI that we need to do it. Whatever credential that we need to do, how you're gonna build it, so on and so forth. Here, we're gonna use this tag. This is the latest tag, perfectly fine. In production, especially when you're in a CI/CD environment, you typically have like whatever, like V 1.0.0, V 1.0.1, V 1.0.3, so on and so forth. Whatever naming convention that you and your um, product manager agreed upon, so that you can communicate those additional features successfully to the salespeople, the customers, then that's going to be the language that you implement here. So there's no surprises, right? So the things that you put in production, the PMs can see it, the salespeople can see it, and hence the customer can see it, and then they know what's going on. Oh, you built this. Oh, you put up a new button. Oh, you build a new page. Yada yada yada. Right now, all those things are clear. So that's tagging. Here we don't really use much tagging because again, this is a YouTube video, so I'm just gonna be using latest. And then everything else perfectly fine. We're gonna uh, create the Docker Compose. Docker Compose has this YAML file, and those are the services that's going inside of this Azure Web App. And then, from here, it's just a bunch of CLIs, bunch of command. Okay, great. Um, I'm good with the plan. Please proceed. Awesome. So that's kind of it. That's kind of it. We spent a lot of time talking about planning. Here, I'm just gonna say, don't even ask me again, because I know you will follow the plan. The plan is pretty clear. Okay, so I know that we spent a long time in the beginning of this video talking about planning, strategy, what exactly it is you want the computer to do for you, right? We talk about all of that in pretty much most of the beginning of the video, and that's done on purpose. It's completely intentional because in uh, in practice, like a Python script or like a TypeScript or like a CLI from Azure or AWS, Cloud Code can do all that pretty fast, can do that in a very smooth way. Um, I'm personally not too worried about how you figure that out. What you're gonna struggle is the planning and making the right choices, right? Cloud Code is not gonna be able to say, oh, go with Azure, don't go with AWS, or vice versa. Cloud Code doesn't know that, right? Unless you have a plan, right? Cloud Code is not gonna know, oh yeah, we're gonna go with this service, we're gonna go with this service. You're gonna have to either brainstorm with it or make an executive call. So in this video, I kind of make an executive call, right? I come into this video, talk out that plan and what that plan sounds like, and then I have Claude Code put together the plan first. But that plan, to be honest, it's already somewhat in my head, and that's because I've done similar things before myself, even before a large language model comes out. So here's the thing. For my students that are watching this video, sometimes um, you don't know what you don't know, right? So you cannot ask what you don't know, because you don't know it. So you're not able, like if you don't have that plan, or if you haven't done that plan before, or you haven't seen similar things before, obviously you're not able to know that. So you either watch this video and you have the terminology, right? Container, service, registry, right? You have the terminology and then you repeat it. Or you can actually brainstorm with Claude Code and then eventually get there, right? So um, we're gonna try to wrap this up. Hopefully this deploy something and then we can play something online. And then hopefully we can wrap up this episode from here. For that next video, we're gonna come back and I'm gonna show you guys, hey, what if I just don't know anything about it? And if you don't know what you don't know, how would you still gonna get there using Claude Code? Um, so I think both video can be interesting, just kind of depending on what the background is of the engineer and what level of engineer you are. Um, Sometimes I think for industry purpose, uh, a very experienced engineer will probably come in with a pretty solid plan, right? Because certain things are deployed certain way within the organization, and you follow the organization rules, right? So if you follow the rules, well, the rules is kind of like a plan, right? It says you can do this, you cannot do this. Well, it's like one small leap from that to come up with a plan. So typically, based on my experience, I think if it's a brownfield project, brownfield project means you already have a project going on, you already have experience, you're already on a job, you already have something going on. Um, in that case, you should really like focus on the plan itself. Like the plan should be pretty clear. Um, because if it's not clear, then it's a greenfield project. If it's a greenfield project, then you should be working on POCs. So if the plan is clear and you know what you want to do, why don't you just have Claude Code do it? So this is when things get really interesting. From every experience that I've seen, typically, greenfield engineers or engineers working on greenfield projects, they actually have a much higher incentive to use Claude Code, even though they don't necessarily have a plan, or they have less of a plan than those experienced engineers that's working on brownfield projects. So now that's really interesting to me because Claude Code or the success of using Claude Code, it's highly dependent on the planning. If you plan accurately, step by step, Claude Code will just do it. So how is it possible that the people with less of a plan will use Claude Code actually more successful than people with more of a plan? So I think there's a little bit of gap here that I actually personally am still trying to figure out, um, which is the experienced engineer, they know what they want, but then somehow they're not using Claude Code. So that's really interesting and fascinating to me because if you know what you want, like you know you need to create an app service and you know you need to run this, why don't you just give that to Claude Code and have Claude Code run it for you? Because if you know you're gonna run this, you know you're gonna run this, why don't you just have Claude Code run it for you? The greenfield engineers, they don't necessarily know this, right? If this is day one that you're on a POC, how do you know that you're gonna build a web app that's putting to Azure with multiple containers? You won't know that unless you get there, right? So that's just an interesting thing that I've observed. Again, not trying to say who's right, who's wrong. I just think there's an interesting mentality there that I think it's surprising. B, it's like not really clear what the blocker is, not really clear what's really going on. Okay, so I'm blabbing just because we're waiting for this. Now where are we? We are phase one, two, three. I think total there are what, nine? Nine. Phase nine. Okay, so let's see if there's error. If there's error, then let's see if we're gonna fix it. Oh, okay, see that's what I'm talking about. The quote limit is 0 for basic VMs on East. That's why I was hesitating to do East. Maybe we need to go to a different region or what? Try with F1 first, then try with other regions for B1. Okay, that's perfectly fine. That's probably what I would personally do, right? If this doesn't work, downgrade it, see if that works. If that doesn't work, then go to a different region. So East US has zero quota for all tiers. Let me try all different regions. Excuse me, other different regions. So this is West US 2, uh, or Central US or West or East US 2. I probably deployed too many things on East US. That's funny. I did not know that. I probably deployed it, a bunch of things on it, and probably um exhausted my quota limit, which is very interesting. So West US 2 worked, and let me verify the plan. So do you need to like recreate a bunch of different things? So this is just Docker Compose, but you did Docker push, right? So I'm assuming this is perfectly fine. So I guess we're multi-region then. That might affect the speed. But let's see how this works. Typically when you cross region, the sheer distance in between data center, even that could slow down the app, right? Especially you have like say 100,000 people on your app, and you're making that API cost, I don't know, like millions API calls a day. Oh, that's definitely gonna slow you down. But this is just a YouTube video, so at the moment, I'm not worried about scalability. I'm just worried about if this is even at all possible to do this with Azure, to do this with Claude Code, without me having to physically typing a bunch of commands, right? In the old days, I will have this notes open somewhere. AWS CLI look like that. I want to do this, and then the appropriate AWS CLI is this and that, and then you physically type the Azure web app, whatever, this command into the terminal, and then you look at the output using your human eyes, right? That's how the old days work. Um, but the goal for the video is to show you how to do that with Claude Code, so we're not worried about scalability at the moment. So let's just see. If you want to go to a different region, go to a different region. Let's just see. Okay. I think it created because we're on phase 8. Phase 8 means the thing is created. Now we gotta add in the API key. So this is awesome, right? I've seen people done this before. Some engineers, if this is the first time they're doing it, they probably just gonna put actual key in here. That's super, super, super not safe. Um, so, experienced engineers will know to source it, right? Once you source it, it becomes a variable. So this dollar sign, that means it's a variable. It's not the Cloud API key is not just Cloud API key, right? The Cloud API key is a variable Cloud API key. So it knows that behind the scene it's actually a variable. So I can record this YouTube video without having to um, put like a blocker on screen to block you guys from seeing whatever this is, right? And you should be pretty safe. So I say yes, and then I don't see any secrets being exposed here on my screen, which is great. If there's an error, we're gonna see what the error is. I personally will not freak out about it. Uh, okay, from Azure Web App. Oh, by the way, if you want to see what the error is, just use Control O, and then you'll be able to print this out, right? Whatever this encoding is, that's a formatting issue. In the old days, humans have to spend a couple hours debugging that, sometimes even days, because you have to ask another engineer because certain secrets you don't have control of. You're gonna have to go to another person to see if the other engineers knows anything about that secrets. If it's a sequence you created yourself, hopefully you have a faster speed of debugging that. Okay, phase 9, verify deployment as your web app. You build as your web app. I think we are pretty much there. This is phase 9. We have 9 phases total. That should be about it. And then in the end, we're going to test it in this browser, and this should be a live app, right? It's nothing local. So I am actually going to test this on a incognito. just to show that this thing should be working. So I think this is probably waiting for um, the containers to start because it takes a while for the container to get fired up and start the app. And then after it started, we'll test the app by doing a curl, right? That's what this means, curls, client CL, client URL. So you're running a client URL and then you're testing out this uh, web URL. Um, so we're just waiting to do that. And if you're anxious, you can probably go to your browser and just test out yourself. Like for example, you can probably grab this and see if it's even working. If it's loading, then it's loading, then you still gotta wait a little bit. Because this is the first time we're doing this, and um, it could definitely take a little bit. While we are waiting for this, let me see if I can bring up that page on Azure to show you guys what that potentially look like. I think it might be interesting to see what that look like because we have a couple of services on Azure that is created now, right? So let's see if I can pull that up. Okay. Okay. So this is the page on Azure, and this is a container registry. So when we're talking about container registry, it's essentially a location for you to upload the Docker image, right? So Docker tag, Docker push, right? All those commands that we previously saw. The goal is to put the Docker image onto the AWS, onto the cloud platform. In this case, is Azure. Um, and so hopefully the web app can call that, right? So the repository is here, and then those are the images that we use. So if you click in it, this is just latest tag, and the latest tag is a tag that we're just using. So that's the ACR. Now let me go to a different place, which is the web app. So let's see. Um, Okay, app service. On the app service, this is what it looks like. So we have a cookie cutter test app on Azure, and there is deployment center. The deployment center should have some sort of a config file, and this config file is the YAML file that earlier we wrote within the plan that basically says, hey, this is a web app. The web app needs to point to these images. And these are Docker images that's like somewhere on Azure. How do we know somewhere? Well, we have the path, right? We have this path says da 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 .io, and then stock backend latest, right? With the right tag and all that stuff. And so on and so forth with Copilot, with front end, and everything is there, right? So when you are having traffic coming in, hitting the front end, user might do something on it, right? It might hit this button, press this button, so on and so forth. Um, what's happening there is basically trying to hit the back end image from front end, trying to hit the Copilot image from front end, and then just repeat that in the preference of what the user clicks on. Um, to be able to do that successfully, you need API key. API key is and should be added here. Obviously, I'm not going to show you guys a value, but you guys get the idea, right? Anthropic API key, Cloud API key, yada, 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 yada. If you're talking to DynamoDB table, you need a URL, you need a key, so on and so forth. So all that stuff should be added for you, uh, just completely within Claude Code. You actually don't need to do that manually. In the old days, true, we do that manually, right? You come in here, you click on that, you say add, or you can run a line of CLI, say Azure web app, add secrets or whatever. Um, so hopefully this way it kind of gives you an idea. Um, the length of effort that Claude Code can do for you to this level of granularity, right? To this level of complexity in this level of details. And I was actually able to go through all of that without typing in single line of Python code, single line of CLI, without having to do all of that. And then here, it looks like there's an error. It looks like it wants to inspect the container logs. Fine, let it do that. Let it do its job. Um, you can, of course, human can inspect that as well, but it's fine. After it runs it, Cloud Code will be able to tell me what the error is. Um, for in the old days, I think when this happened, what I would personally do is go to activity logs or something like that, right? Go to overview and then go to this logs and then view the log stream and then see if there's error here and there. I have to wait to connect to the instance, so on and so forth. And then once I saw the error, I will then be able to debug from there. Maybe I'll have to change something locally, change some lines of code in the Docker image and rebuild Docker image, whatever that is, right? Whatever that is, since Claude has a CLI, Claude can look at this. I've seen also engineers like like copy paste this into Claude Code or into ChatGPT. Well, why do you have to do that? I mean, it's running it for you, right? You just use Azure Web App log download. So it's pretty much the same thing. You see, this is already starting to test the loading, whereas here on the console, I'm still waiting for the instance to load the log, right? So you can compare and contrast the speed difference, and obviously this is much faster. Um, so this also kind of give you an idea of, hey, when you're on a cloud, the contrast is not just execution, but also speed and accuracy, right? It takes a human a lot of experience to be able to pull this off accurately, click on the right button, look at the right lines of code. But Cloud is actually able to do all that for you. So I'm going to exit out of that by going to overview. And then, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Once we've, figure out this bug, whatever it is, we're gonna come back and we're just gonna run this again. So now it has a timeout error. Let's see what the problem is. So, okay, I think we're gonna restart. I'm actually curious if there's an actual error or problem. I don't think there's a actual error or problem. It might just be a blank restart. So we'll see how that goes. I think we are really close. Hopefully in the next minute or two, I should be able to, show you guys, what the app looks like. And it will look pretty much exactly same as this one, except that it's not on localhost. It's with this URL. And this is completely hosted on Azure. So that's the idea here. And then while we're waiting for this, one fun fact to share with you guys is how Azure scale. Now, of course, you can ask ChatGPT, but since I'm here, I can just show you guys this. So on Azure, there's this thing called tier size. So where's the tier size? Yeah, this one, scale up. So if you click on that button, it will show you like monthly costing, and then which instance is costing you what sort of thing. So we don't need a sidebar. We can just look at this table. So right now we're on basic 1, B1. That's the name or the level of instance that we're currently using. Um, it has 100 ACU or CPU or vCPU as one vCPU. Oh, excuse me, sorry. This is, I believe, 100 minutes or something. Uh, Oh, wait, no, this is ACU. Sorry. You have one CPU, and then the memory is 1.75 gigabytes. The remote storage is 10 gigabytes. Scale is 3. And then cost per hour is about 1.7 cent. cost per month is $12.41. So that's the level instance that this app will be running on. And if I just leave it here and I do nothing about it, then my account will be charged $12.41 per month. So obviously, I'm not asking everyone to do it. Certainly, I'm not asking my students to do it. I'm just giving you guys a sense of the cost associated to be able to do this, right? Um, what I'm personally going to do is every time I build a POC, I get a budget requirement, I get the understanding, I get people stamping on it, whether it's my peers or my boss or whoever, right? If it's something I build, obviously I check my wallet, right, to see if I'm okay with that number. So personally, I'll make sure I'm okay with that number. Recommendation for all of you guys, make sure you're okay with that number. Um, Obviously, if you scale up, you get more CPU, you get more storage, you get multiple state. Excuse me, you get multiple slot. You can have a staging slot, a production slot, a dev slot, so on and so forth. You can do all that fun things if you have more money. But for time being, I'm gonna create this, show you guys what it look like, and I'm planning on delete it. So let's see. This is interesting. So I think we have a little bit of a problem here. It says we need an Azure specific engines config, and then wrote 34 lines in this config file. Um, and then we need to build the Docker image again because now we have a new config file. So yeah, I mean that's perfectly fine. If you need to do that, then you need to do that. I'm actually curious of how you get from this error code to um, knowing that you need to do this. So that's something that a human engineer might take a while to figure out. Not that it's completely impossible, because here's why. This engines file, a very experienced cloud engineer will be able to pull that out from like a database or like a repository somewhere, right? Like an old repository, old blog somewhere, Stack Overflow somewhere that they saved. They will know that. Um, for me, when we just did this, we actually did not do that here. I literally just said, hey, I want this to be on Azure Web App, and then just pray, right? So we actually did not do that. So that's the missing context, right? That's the missing context that in the old days, you probably have to go to a cloud engineer with 10, 15 years of experience. But today, Claude Code should be able to solve that for us. Here, we're going to wait again, test out the app, and hopefully it will restart correctly. So I think the benefit here is Claude Code will be able to basically write it out for you and test it. And then Claude Code can actually do that again and again and again if you give permission. And then if I want, I can walk away and then come back and Claude Code will probably finish it in like the next minute. Um, that could definitely save a lot of time and also just give yourself a peace of mind or like a sanity check, right? Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to cover. Um, Once it's done, I'm going to show you the live web app and see how that works. We're going to read the console so we know that it's making API call correctly so that we know that there's no error. And then hopefully from there, we'll be able to wrap up this video. And then next video, we're going to be jumping into um, a little bit of unsupervised territory, meaning that if you don't even have any plan, then what are you supposed to do? So let's give a few more minutes for this to finish. And then let's see what the app look like. So while we're waiting, another thing I could share with you guys is um, I think this is interesting in the sense that um, it's all built in here. And then the Azure web app is actually taking care of the load balancing, and then throughput and things like that. In some way, it's making things easier because in production, you will need Kubernetes. And then when you're in Kubernetes, you have a bunch of pods flying around and you are essentially writing the policy that's native to the cloud that's related to deployment yourself. So it definitely takes a lot of brain power to be able to pull that off when everything is completely freestyle, when everything is completely you define whatever it is, right? Um, Here, Azure Web App, it's actually taking a little bit of that away from you. So when you are coming to Azure Web App, it's literally just Azure Web App. You deploy something and you have a web app. Um, so that's another reason I found this interesting and easy to use. Okay, so let's see. Oh, it says still timing out. Let me check what containers are actually running by looking at the log stream. Okay, so now it's starting to go into that cycle, right? Looking at a log, see what the error is, see if we can refix or recode something, redeploy, and then come back to log again, and then repeat that cycle until all of the errors are checked. So here we test out a connectivity issue. I don't know. It might be some sort of API call. It might be that we're missing a key somewhere. It might be between Docker images. So maybe Nginx proxy need to be corrected. Um, it could be a bunch of different things. But let's see. DNS resolution. I don't expect DNS resolution to be the problem here. So it's testing a direct IP connection. Now that's interesting. This is actually a new error. I don't believe I've seen this error before. Well, at least not in this level of setup. So it's definitely interesting to see these errors. Um, it's also a learning curve for me as well. Let's see. So we're gonna check the port. So let's do that. This is getting actually very interesting to see what the error is. A port is open. So the port is open, but there's no response. So containers are failing to start. Okay, so that should be so that's the container level problem. So let's check the REST API to see if we can even call into that. So the Linux FX version is null. Um, yeah, you might just have to define it. So set it explicitly, and then let's see if it breaks or not. This is very interesting. So um, I think that initial config definitely deserves a little bit more purpose, right? Uh, a 10, 20 years cloud engineer will be able to tell you um, like the perfect config file so that, we don't have to go through these troubles to look at the log, to debug, and then deploy again, and then repeat that cycle until we fix every single error. And I think a lot of this falls under the initial um, config file. So let me see if I can pull that up. The initial config file is here, this one. I think this one definitely deserves a bit purpose, a bit more worked through. I think this is probably uh what's messing us up at the first place, in the sense that what's written here obviously is correct, but you should probably have more setup. Now I don't know if that is a problem for these errors, but I think, if this were a real project, not just a YouTube video, I would look into writing better YAML file, so that when we stand up the service at the first place, at the very first time when we stood up the service, like we hit everything 100% correct. Because now, obviously, as you can see, we are definitely diving into a little rabbit hole here. But hey, that's okay. I want this to be recorded for that purpose. So, let's see how it goes. While I'm waiting, maybe I can go here, refresh again, and then I will probably still be waiting. Oh, wait a sec. I think I seen something. I think I saw something. At least here it says stock view. So I think we're going there. We're definitely restarting, but we're going there. Let me check my Docker. I'm hoping that we'll definitely update this markdown file after this bug is fixed. Because uh we I have a feeling this is gonna be a good lesson learned. And then hopefully we don't make the same mistake again. It says Nginx can't reach the backend. This is actually known. Oh wait, hold on one sec. Hold on one sec. The backend is not 8,000 though, right? Wait a sec. Wait a sec. Is that is that what the problem is? Oh, it is 8,000. Uh, is that even correct? Because I thought the Docker image is 8,001. I think that might be a problem. We're gonna run that. If that doesn't run, I think it might be a poor range because I changed the poor range earlier, right? Because I got other projects running on Docker desktop, and that might be what the problem is. On the Azure web app, it might be using the port range that locally it might be a different port range. So that might be my fault actually, for not paying attention to these things. Uh, let's see. Port range 80, 4001, 8,000. But how could this be 8,000? Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm gonna say this. I am going to say, um, please proceed to run what you were doing. Additionally, I can think of checking the port range um, of how the images are exposed. Maybe there's a disconnect there. So that might be the problem. I don't know. I think it's worth checking. Let's see. Here it's 8,000, 4001. It's identical. It's port mapping. Okay. Azure multi-container routes traffic to port 8080 by default. So you're gonna have to remap that 8080 to 8080. You need to rebuild it. Okay, so you have to rebuild it and then push again, right? Okay, so that's consistent with my understanding as well. So Docker build, that makes sense. And this is just a front end, right? Okay, this is just a front end. Um, yeah, it's because uh my Docker desktop is running a bunch of other projects, and I had to change the port because I'm building this with the other projects up and running. So I had to change the port range for this project. But when I deploy it, I think I might have forgot to change that back. And I think that might be what the problem is. But it's funny how the error message doesn't say anything about that. So I am really curious if this is the problem. If this is the problem, then hey, everyone, right? You watch this video all the way here. This is going to be a human error, right? So I can't blame anybody else, right? This is completely my fault, right? If I'm going to change the port range in the beginning of the video, then it's my responsibility to change the port range in the end of the video, right? Um, so that's interesting. We're gonna do Docker build, Docker push again. We're gonna see if this solves the problem. if this solves the problem, then oh my gosh, this entire rabbit hole is completely um created by created by human. Um, so another thing is, well, if you're gonna use a different port range, then you better change yourself before and after that you mess around with it. Or you have a clean Docker desktop, right? Your Docker desktop should not be running 15 different things, right? As how I'm doing it right now. That's just gonna be one easy thing to do to completely get yourself into the rabbit hole. With that said, I am going to copy the path of this markdown file. And then when that's done, I am going to basically ask Claude Code to put like a little note, like a little remark in the Docker file to basically say, hey, we've done this before. This is possible. This is an easy way to mess things up. uh, Put it in Docker file, excuse me, put it in the Markdown file, so we can basically don't do it again, right? So that's what's happening. I think I don't work for Anthropic, but if I work there, I'll probably have like a notation list to explain what this thing means. Osmosing, I actually don't know what that means. It might be using a tool, it might be using five tools. It might be making API calls. Who knows, right? I don't know what this word means. Um, I'm hoping they democratize some of these terminologies so I can have a little bit of clarity of like how it's going about fixing the code, fixing the error, or running a CLI or whatever. Because for example, if this means it needs to run a curl, um, then that's good amount of information and knowledge for me to know because not all the organization rule allows running a curl in the back end. If you have random client URLs running around, um, some organization rules might shut it down. And it'd be better for human engineers to know that because um, if we know that, then we'll be able to expect that error, right? If there's an error happen. So that could be definitely one area of improvement. Again, I'm not saying engineers are wrong. I'm not saying Anthropic is wrong. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying there's definitely a little area here that deserves clarification. Um, so that's that. But then here it says bash, so I think that's clear enough. I just don't know if this osmosing it's doing something else other than this bash. So what do we have? Um, Maybe I should do a control O and just see what's going on. I don't know if this is gonna be a problem. 000. Is it gonna going to be a problem? I do not know. I'm expecting the health status come out to be 200. If a health status come out to be 200, I think we have relatively high confidence that the web app is built successfully. If not, then maybe something's wrong. See, this is another interesting name called newspapering. I don't know what that means. Uh, let's see if we can find it. Claude Code newspapering. Well, maybe someone already explained this. I'm just unaware of what's going on. Uh, Refers to a specific stylized mode of operation where the AI agent is instructed to format, write, or design output in the style of traditional newspaper. That is interesting. I have never seen that before. Is there a link? There's a link. Okay, so maybe someone already explained it. I just don't know what's going on. Clotting. Okay, that's interesting. Uh, some of the Claude's random verbs. Hustling, unfurling. This is very interesting. Is this a public link? I did not know that. That's interesting. Okay, what do we have here? We changed something and then we gotta build again and do Docker push again. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I was hoping to get this recording done in less than an hour. So I think we are still hopeful, but time is pretty much past. So we'll have to see if we can hush up from here. Um, but yeah, I think overall it's interesting, and we're gonna wait to see if we can finish this. Hi, and we are back. So we did a few rounds of debugging, and finally, I think we made it work. So I had Claude Code try to do a little bit of update on this Markdown file. So we document what went wrong and what was the proxy issue, what was the Nginx issue. I think we had to fix the configuration file. We have to fix the Nginx for the front end and a proxy to the back end and all that stuff, right? Um, we talked about the port range. So all those things turn out to be something to check and to verify. I think that's definitely something that we made a mistake before. This port range, that's on me. Um, I did it that way because my Docker container, my Docker desktop locally was running other projects. So I had to change that, and unfortunately, that led us to a deep rabbit hole to solve that problem. Um, but hey, now that this web app is live with this URL, now I can give this URL to another person, and they can then use it. So let's see if this is gonna work. So for example, register. I'm gonna use a test user 4, and then I'm gonna hit enter. Hopefully, this is going to work. And then first time might be a little bit slow. And let's see. Let me open F12 to see if this is working. Okay. It took a little bit, moment, but I think it's working. Let's test out Microsoft. So hopefully it's making an API call using uh, cookie cutter API. That's the API stock endpoint. And then we have little AI ratios running on the AI insights. So that's analyzing. And then we'll give a minute and we'll see if that returns a little bit of a snippet of analysis on how good these ratios are. Great. That's there. Awesome. So everything's working. I don't think these things have any errors. And then I can talk to chatbot. I can say, um, what do you think about profit margin? And hopefully you'll be able to directly see what is on the user interface about profit margin, because that's how we design the Copilot. Copilot is able to see what's in the UI, right? Um, so formatting obviously deserves a little bit of a work, but the functionality is there. 39%, great, that's there. Um, so that's awesome, right? I think that's pretty much what we're looking for. And then let's check out the um, Copilot guidance system, see if that's working. Say now I want to look up Tesla stock. I didn't even give a ticker, so let's see if it's working. Boom, typing Tesla, boom, loading. It did that for me. 1, 2 button down, chart is here, and then says, yeah, perfect. I've searched this for you. Data's now loading, yada, yada, yada. I can zoom in here, just like that. Uh, little prediction, right? Machine learning, and then here the ratio is being analyzed, right? And then here's a little AI analysis. So everything's working, right? Everything's on the cloud, everything's kosher, we're good to go. And whatever bugs that we had to fix, now it's locally stored in this file called deploy Azure Markdown file. So yeah, we have a little architecture, and then we know what's going on. We have a little cost here, and everything is straightforward. So after the video, obviously I'm going to delete it. Here's a deletion of how you delete it as a group. So that also hopefully give you a little bit of a context, right? Because once you finish the project, if you want to shut it down, you got to delete all the resources. Because if you don't delete resources, it will cost you this much money moving forward if you do nothing about it, right? Because this resource is online now and the website's live, all that's live. So with all that being said, hopefully this is a video is fruitful. It's a long video. Apologize for that. But you can skip ahead. You can watch the important piece. Hopefully it sheds some light of how to use Claude Code to deploy a app using the R container, using Nginx into a Azure environment with the environment variable, with the YAML file, with multiple Docker images, and how do you make that work and how do you debug if you do need to debug. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.